Thank you for staying with us. The cause of public debts have shifted in Nigeria as both foreign and domestic debts of the country dropped significantly. The National Orientation Agency released an update on the nation's debt profile, which shows that Nigeria's external debt declined from $113.42 billion in 2023 to $94.22 billion by the end of 2024. The report also revealed the progress made internally as the 36 states in the country record reduction in domestic debts. The agency credits the financial headway to the series of economic reforms introduced and implemented under President Tinubu's administration. Joining us via Zoom from the United Kingdom to discuss what the debt ease means to Nigeria's economy is a public finance analyst, Olusegun Elemo. Good morning, Segun. Glad to have you join us.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me. Happy to join.
Great.
To all of you.
Great. Now, talk to us because this matter of Nigeria's external debt have been a major concern to a majority of Nigerians, especially its impact on our economic development and social well-being. Now that we have seen a drop, how much impact will this have on the same matters we've been concerned about?
I think first of all is to, first, in a sense, congratulate ourselves because, there was a time where we had debt service to revenue at 97%. And now we're beginning to see some of the reforms that the federal government, led by the president, initiated in 2023 when he took over office. First, the removal of the subsidy, the harmonization of the foreign exchange, and after then, we've seen, even more reforms. For instance, in the cryptocurrency, the tax laws are now being instituted at the National Assembly, remittances by the NNPC Limited, and things like that. So those are reforms and fiscal activities that have contributed to where we are. And going to your question, I think now we are freeing up resources. The economy, like the president, always said that is turning the curve and possibly more resources. Not just possibly. I think the reality is that more resources are now being freed up, whether at the center or subnational level. I know that there are a number of states who are taking up, significant infrastructure projects. What I just hope is that the governors, particularly, will be able to, deploy the resources that are now at their disposal in a way that puts money in the pockets of the people. And I will put it this way: many people, after the reforms, that were announced and implemented by the federal government, a lot of people lost jobs. Disposable incomes shrunk, and many people haven't recovered or just recovering from all of that. We want a situation where economic activities will now be boosted, particularly at subnational level, deploying several initiatives, including public works and the likes, to put money in the pockets of the people so that they can get, their lives back.
One of the beautiful things that happened recently too is that when IMF published a list of debtor countries, Nigeria wasn't there. Could you tell us the significance of that? Does it mean that we can go back to IMF and borrow some more money, or does it? What's the significance?
Well, I think the significance, first of all, is that we are a solvent nation, and we have the capacity to pay back our debts. I think that statement, is clear enough to international financial institutions whom we have financial relationships or obligations with, and that sort of put us in a very comfortable fiscal landscape that these institutions can reckon with the credibility of the country to pay back its debt. I think that statement was very clear. Whether we can go back to these institutions to borrow, of course we can. We still have the SDR, window with the IMF. The World Bank continues to provide loans and facility to the country. We also, we've seen bonds that have been issued abroad by the DMO. We see how optimal those bonds are performed. They've performed, optimally. Meaning that investors, foreign investors, local investors, international financial institutions have confidence now in the situation of the economy, and and of course, like I mentioned, reckons with the credibility of the country to pay back its debt, and we've not defaulted in that regard. And I think that is the trajectory that the president and his team wants to travel to ensure that we continue to meet our debt obligation. I mean, there is no country in the world that doesn't have debt responsibilities. What matters the most is what you use the debt for. And I can say that I and my colleagues were beginning to look at, the debt, trajectory of the country, particularly at subnational level, and looking at the value of public debt in Nigeria, whether we, the people, are getting commensurate value for the debt obligations that, our leaders are taking up. And I think we're going to publish the study report in the next couple of days. But I think ultimately is that the president and his team wants to put the country on the path where, our partners, our financial partners, both locally and internationally, understands that we have the credibility, we have the capacity to pay back our debt. And I think that's the statement that was made with the IMF.
Each time we talk about debt, whether debt reduction or debt relief, I always ask myself the question, is there really any relief anywhere? Because, I find it quite interesting. It reminds me of what this man writes in his book, John Perkins, The Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where he said that developing nations are pushed into unsustainable debt through misleading forecasts and conditional loans, benefiting foreign interest while trapping countries' independency. So if you look at that in the context of our conversation, with Nigeria's debt now at $94.22 billion, are we escaping the debt trap, or are we simply shifting gears within the same neo-colonial playbook?
I don't think we're shifting gears as to neocolonialism and all of that. Well, I reckon with the fact that we need to, domesticate our own reality. And over time, I know that even our development banks in Africa have, touched on the fact that the ratings and the forecast that African countries get, is somewhat skewed, to suit certain narratives. And that's why I know that the AFDB and a couple of other stakeholders in that sector are working at creating an institution for Africa that provides the kind of rating that reflects the economic situation and the fiscal standpoints of the countries in Africa. And that's very important. But I think what is equally important here, is that we need to reposition our own country, in particular Nigeria, the fiscal structure in a way that provides, financial stability for the country. And I think that's what the whole re-engineering, which the president and his team are about. With all the reforms that have been implemented and the ones that are in the pipeline, to sort of re-engineer the fiscal landscape in a way that, not that we won't take up debts, not that we won't borrow money from our partners anymore, but that we will have, the structure, the fiscal structure locally to generate substantial revenue and, ultimately pay back our debts. And I think that's what is important. And mind you, the net foreign exchange reserve, you see that it's also gone up. I mean, we had, for instance, in 2021, you had a foreign reserve of about 14.5 billion, but then moved down to 8 billion in 2022, and then depleted, or maybe not depleted, but downward spiral, you could put it, at 3.9 billion in 2023. But hey, in 2024, you have something, that then shot up the reserve to about $23 billion. So these are all, benefits of, the reforms, that have been put in place and will definitely put the country back on track in a manner that there is increased confidence, on the part of investors to bring their money here, knowing that their investment is safe and the macroeconomic indicators, will support, economic growth. And I think that's what everybody, is looking forward to.
Interesting. I am looking at what more can be done for us to particularly structure this in such a way that is sustainable and we can still have that decline that we have been speaking about with regards to this debt relief. What more can we do?
Well, I think we need to wrap up the tax laws, the tax bills that are currently before the National Assembly. That needs to be, we need to speed up legislation on that. Since all stakeholders are now on the same page on these, tax bills, we need to, quickly resolve everything and make sure the president signs them into law so that we can get more revenue into the treasury. Well, again, there is the school of thought of as to, how do you tax people who are poor? I think the tax bill and the explanations that have gone on with how the tax bills have been drafted, it's to protect, those who, are vulnerable and then tax more on those who have the capacity to pay the tax. And I think we need to get that moving so that we can mobilize more domestic revenue, continue to limit debt to revenue service ratio, and then ensure, that we expand, infrastructure as it is currently ongoing, even though I believe that subnational chief executive will now need to, prioritize what is important. I mean, for some, maybe not constructing airport at this time, maybe is to look at, other, social sectors, that are impacting directly on the well-being and the quality of life of the people. For instance, maybe healthcare, maybe, education, and some, other kinds of infrastructure that improves the quality of life of the people. Maybe those are things that needs to be looked at. But again, I mean, debt service to revenue, 2023 was 97%, like I mentioned earlier. Now at less than 70%, I think that's a very good one. And just to harmonize currently what is being done on the fiscal side, borrow, but borrow responsibly and ensure that we get value for the public debt, and then continue the reforms that the monetary authorities are, have embarked on, and ensure that they consolidate on it so that the foreign exchange market is what it is and continues to improve. Investors continue to have confidence in the economy. Diaspora remittances continues to come in, and then the whole system is boosted up to provide the needed development.
Well, sorry. Earlier on, you alluded to the fact that now that our debt burden has been reduced, governors have more money. I guess that's one of the advantages of servicing your debt. Could you give us some more advantages that Nigerians would see? Because we have policies now, we have reforms now that allows us to service our debts. How does it get to the man on the street?
Well, the way it simply gets to the man on the street is if you have an environment that attracts investments, and that kind of environment will be an environment where you have quality infrastructure, where you have where the quality of life is up there, and where you have security, and the likes. So if you have that kind of environment, then you have investors, putting in money, people setting up businesses, small and medium enterprises thriving, and that's how it gets to the common man. When you have that kind of environment, then there's fair competition. You see businesses are able to compete freely, and when there is fair competition in that environment, you see prices dropping. I mean, you can see what has happened, for instance, even in the petroleum industry. For instance, you see stability now, and then you see competition. And then you see prices now, hovering in and out and all of that. That's what a typical, stable economic environment does. But I mean, going back to the question as to other things that we can do, I think that the accountability landscape also needs some. I think it also needs some attention, if I may put it that way. For instance, I know that the federal audit bill is currently sitting, in the National Assembly, has been passed by the House of Reps. Now we're awaiting concurrence by the Senate. Those are things that we can do: push the bill forward and get the president to assent to it, provide more powers to the Office of the Auditor General, so that as we are getting more revenue, we also have the needed oversight to ensure that this revenue that are being put to use deliver value to the people, not just at the center, but also at subnational level. I think these are things that we need to focus on, ensure that the oversight system to deliver public good to the people are in place, not just us taxing the people and getting more money.
That's right. So if you look at the historical perspective, Nigeria often faced, or it has been faced with challenges with external debt management, leading to that agreement, if you could recall, the Paris Club in the past. So much so that one is now wondering how some of the debts that we acquire would, eventually pan out. Thank God we're able to pay this. But how does this, the current debt reduction compare to the past efforts, like the Paris Club that I mentioned, and what lessons are there that we've been able to learn, or have you been able to learn so much lessons to ensure that there is sustainable debt management moving forward?
Yeah, in terms of sustainability of public debt, what is important is that you have, the domestic environment is enhanced enough to avail you the needed resources. With regards to the Paris Club, we took up debts over a long period that we now got to a point where we realized that, if we're going to pay all of this, it's going to take everything from us, and we had to go negotiate. Between that time and now, where we accumulated another round of debts, is that our leaders weren't paying attention to how we're utilizing resources locally, how we're generating revenue locally, and whether the fiscal landscape was enhanced enough to provide the needed revenue. And I think that's what has now changed in this current administration. For instance, again, reinstituting or providing a new environment for tax administration and re-engineering the system, making sure that we are not bleeding the foreign exchange reserve in a manner that used to be. And all of that has provided stability and continues to provide stability. So I expect that there will be more revenue domestically over the medium and the long term that will enable us to forecast the kind of debt that we can take up, and provides us, puts us in that space where we have the capacity to continue to repay. Not that you are going to, take up debt and then pay, just like that. Yeah, you have moratorium period, you have, those kinds of leeways that are provided by the financial institutions. But what is important is that whether you can continue to meet your debt service obligation and then the capital repayment, obligations. And I think that with what we have right now, if we continue in this trajectory, we should be able to continue in that way and not get stuck with public, rising public debt in a manner that hangs us in the neck anymore.
All right, still talking about this matter of sustainability and revenue generation, because revenue generation is still prone to external shocks. And there are those who are questioning this. Can we sustain this when you look at the level of our revenue generation on the long run? And what are the risks even involved if we are able or not able to do this as we should, if we are having the right revenue generation?
Well, I think the non-oil sector is performing very well now. we just need to continue that that pathway to ensure that we provide all the support to the non-oil sector. And I know that even the communication subsector, has been forecasted to do very well in 2025 and 2026, providing, even better inflows to the country. What I think, yes, there is volatility in our mainstay, which is oil. But I think that we need to focus more on the non-oil sector and ensure that we provide all the needed support, attract investments, make sure that the environment is suitable for investment, so that we can improve productivity in that sector. And for the oil sector anyway, we still have an environment which we can get some revenue. We just need to be more responsible with how we utilize revenue from the oil sector in a way that we can use to enhance the non-oil sector and scale productivity in that regard. But I think the opportunities are there. The investors, in diaspora are seeing even more opportunities. And just recently, I think a few days ago, I saw that Petrobras is looking to come back into Nigeria. If there are no opportunities, I don't think Petrobras will consider coming back to Nigeria to develop some more investment. So I think what is important is that we continue to provide the needed environment in terms of security, infrastructure, and monetary space, the fiscal landscape, and all of that. Ensure that we build confidence in our local and foreign investors.
Good. Do we have time for one more question? Okay, just before we go, as a finance analyst, if we sustain this debt servicing behavior that we have done because of the policies and the reforms in the financial sector, where do you see Nigeria's economy in the next 2 years?
Well, I think GDP is going to do much better, even though I think the forecast for 2025 is about 3.5% or thereabout, if I'm not mistaken. But I expect that if we continue this trajectory, GDP will of course improve significantly. And for me, what is important is not just the numbers with the GDP, but even as GDP improves, we want to see an improvement that is inclusive in such a way that we're able to limit the number of poor people in our country. We're able to improve literacy level. We're able to limit the numbers of unemployed young people. We're able to. So as the economy improves, it must improve in a manner that is inclusive and not leaving people behind. And I think that is what is paramount, what our leaders should have topmost in their minds as they implement all of these reforms.
So if you look at Nigeria's external debt, external reserves, which have begun to rebound in 2025, which is now contributing to more stable naira and declining inflation. Exactly what do you think this external reserve will be attributed to? Can it be attributed to the reduction in foreign debts? And how do you think this will impact future monetary policy?
Well, it can be attributed to reduction in foreign debt, but I think largely is the stability, that we've now seen in the monetary space. I mean, given and it's important to also commend the effort of the CBN governor, providing the needed leadership and staying the course. I think all of that is now yielding some very good results. So that is it. I expect that he will continue in that line. He has said he will continue in that line. And with that, we will expect more improvement. And once that improvement continues, then we'll experience more stability in terms of currency fluctuation and all of that. And once that is done, securitizing investments and attracting investment, should be easier and will be easier ultimately.
Absolutely. And that's a fine place to leave this conversation this morning. Thank you so much, Public Finance Analyst Olusegun Elemo, for your time on the program. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.